Most retirees don't think much about required minimum distributions until they're right around the corner. They think of RMDs as something that starts later, something future them will deal with, something that probably won't be that big of a deal. And Roth conversions, those are often viewed as optional, advanced, or only useful for people with very specific tax situations. But here's the reality I see far too often. RMDs and Roth conversions are not separate decisions. They are two sides of the same retirement planning problem. And when retirees don't understand how these two interact, the cost usually shows up years later in higher taxes, forced income they don't need, higher Medicare premiums, and far less flexibility than they expected. I've worked with retirees who did everything right, saved consistently, invested prudently, avoided major mistakes, and still ended up paying significantly more in taxes simply because they missed this connection. So today, let's walk through RMDs versus Roth conversions, how they actually work together, and what most retirees don't realize until it's too late. Hi, I'm Scott O'Connell with Tactical Investment Advisors, and today I'm breaking down how required minimum distributions and Roth conversions interact and why understanding this relationship early can make a meaningful difference in how much control, flexibility, and confidence you have in retirement. If you find this video helpful, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps more people find these educational videos. First, what RMDs really are and why they catch people off guard. Let's start with the basics. Required minimum distributions are mandatory withdrawals from certain retirement accounts once you reach a specific age. These apply to traditional IRAs and 401ks. Withdrawals are generally taxable as ordinary income, required every year once they begin. The IRS isn't asking whether you need the income. They're simply saying you've deferred taxes long enough. Now those dollars have to come back onto your tax return. So what surprises many retirees is how large these RMDs can become. They're calculated based on your account balance. They're based on the IRS life expectancy tables. If your portfolio has grown well, or if you delayed withdrawals for many years, those required withdrawals can be much larger than expected. And once RMDs begin, you lose control over the timing. Next, why RMDs quietly create a tax pressure. One thing most people don't realize is that RMDs don't exist in isolation. They stack on top of everything else. RMDs plus Social Security, RMDs plus pension, RMDs plus investment income. Income that once felt optional suddenly becomes mandatory. That forced income can push you into higher tax brackets. That forced income can increase how much of your Social Security becomes taxable. And that income can also trigger higher Medicare premiums, as well as reduce flexibility later in retirement. So here's the key issue. By the time RMDs begin, many of the best tax planning opportunities are already gone. Roth conversions and what they're actually for. So let's now talk about Roth conversions. A Roth conversion means voluntarily moving money from a tax-deferred account into a Roth account and paying taxes today in exchange for tax-free growth later. Most retirees misunderstand why Roth conversions are used. They assume it's about guessing future tax rates or trying to beat the IRS. That's not the real purpose. Roth conversions are about control. They're about deciding when income shows up. They're about deciding how much income does actually show up. They're about deciding how much flexibility you keep later. It's not about avoiding taxes entirely. It's about shaping them over time. Next, the planning window most retirees miss. Here's where everything comes together. For many retirees, there's a critical planning window. After they stop working and before RMDs begin. During this period, taxable income is often lower. There are no wages. Social Security may not have started yet, and required minimum distributions have not kicked in yet. This window is where Roth conversions are often most effective for some retirees, depending on their tax situation. And why is that? Because converting during lower income years may smooth lifetime tax brackets, It may reduce future RMDs, and it may preserve flexibility later. Once RMDs begin, that window starts to close. Why waiting feels safe but often isn't? Many retirees delay Roth conversions because waiting feels comfortable. They think, I'll convert later if I need to. I don't want to pay taxes now, which is a pretty common thought. And also, my tax rate might be lower later. The problem is that RMDs remove your ability to choose. Once RMDs begin, you must take withdrawals. You must report the income, and you have far less room to manage the tax brackets. At that point, Roth conversions don't disappear, but they're often far less efficient. Next, this is not an either-or decision. This is where many people get it wrong. They think the choice is either accept RMDs or do Roth conversions. In reality, smart retirement planning often uses both intentionally. Roth conversions don't eliminate RMDs entirely, but they can reduce their size, they can delay tax pressure, and they can improve predictability. The goal isn't to eliminate RMDs. The goal is to avoid being surprised by them. Next, the ripple effects most retirees don't see. The relationship between RMDs and Roth conversions affects more than taxes. It can influence Medicare premiums, cash flow stability, estate planning outcomes, survivor income for a spouse. Large RMDs later in life can create stress that wasn't visible in your early 60s. This is why planning needs to happen before the problem shows up on your tax return. Next, why there is no universal answer. Some retirees should convert aggressively. Others should convert modestly. Some may not convert at all. The right approach depends on current and future tax brackets, portfolio size and growth, other income sources, health and longevity expectations, spousal planning considerations. This is where working with a financial professional can make a meaningful difference, not by applying a rule of thumb, but by coordinating decisions over time. A better way to frame the decision, instead of asking, should I do Roth conversions? A better question is, how do I want my income to show up later in retirement? Controlled income versus forced income. Predictable taxes versus reactive taxes. Flexibility versus rigidity. Roth conversions are one tool to shape that future. RMDs are what happen when the plan is left on autopilot. Required minimum distributions and Roth conversions are rarely talked about together, but in retirement, they are inseparable. They're connected by timing. They're connected by taxes, and they're connected by how much control you keep over your income later in life. Most retirees don't miss this relationship because they made bad decisions. They miss it because no one ever shows them how income, taxes, and required withdrawals interact over decades, not just in a single year. When RMDs arrive without a plan, they don't just increase your tax bill, they limit flexibility. They reduce options, and they often force income at a stage of life when certainty matters more than ever. Roth conversions, when used thoughtfully and at the right time, aren't about avoiding taxes or trying to outsmart the system. They're about designing your retirement income so it's intentional, not reactive. Good retirement outcomes don't come from guessing future tax rates or chasing the perfect strategy. They come from planning early enough that your options are still open and coordinating decisions so your money works with your retirement, not against it. If you're approaching retirement and want to make sure your plan is working for you, not against you, let's talk. RMDs, Roth conversions, Social Security, Medicare premiums, and portfolio withdrawals all affect each other. Looking at any one of them in isolation is where small oversights turn into expensive mistakes later. When you book a free consultation using the link in the description below, I'll walk you through how these pieces fit together into your specific situation so you can see where flexibility exists today and where it may disappear in the future if nothing changes. There's no pressure, there's no obligation, and no one-size-fits-all advice. Just a clear professional conversation designed to help you understand your options and make informed decisions before they become permanent. Click the link in the description below to book a free consultation, and I'll walk you through your options. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, I'll see you in the next video.